Hello there everybody, how is it going and how have you been? I am EuclideanSqd, and we're back here with the Yami Marik Returns event in Duel Links. Like I said, I'm going to be showing off a couple of decks that you can use to farm some of the characters in this event for both points and loot drops, but I do want to say one thing really quick. Last time, what I was expecting to be able to do would be to show off a very expensive farming deck that could pretty much guarantee a high score, but be full of rare cards that probably only somebody who's sunk a lot of time into the game would be able to use, and then a cheaper farming deck that would still be able to consistently win, may not be able to get as high of a score, but would be a lot easier to put together for a new player. Well, turns out I can't really do that because a lot of the information I was going off for the event is actually outdated, and Marik's deck has been changed since the last time he came around. So I couldn't really use a lot of that information. So what I've done instead is I found a couple of higher end farming decks online for both Marik and the other duelist you probably want to farm a little bit in this event if you can, Arcana. And I've basically modified those decks to make them cheaper to use, but hopefully still just as effective. And the first deck we're going to be going over is Mai's. I'm going to be going over it really quick and then into a little bit more detail when we're actually dueling Marik. But the reason it works with, it's very recommended that you use this particular deck with Mai is because of her ability Aroma Strategy, which lets you see the top card of your deck at all times. This works with one of the key cards in the deck and basically guarantees that you'll be able to get the effect to go off every single time, and is very integral to the strategy of the deck itself. And the good news is that not only is Mai one of the first duels that you can unlock in the game, but the Aroma Strategy reward is given to you just by getting her to level 4. So since you're going to be dueling a lot of NPC duelists anyway to get Mat Fragments, should be pretty easy to get her up to level 4 so that you can get the Aroma Strategy skill, and then throw the deck together and go after Marik. Now, the deck itself is primarily rares and normals with one super rare that I could probably get around if I really tried, and in fact I might go ahead and try after I show off the deck as it is. But the 4 cards that you really want to carry to the end of the game are going to be Gravekeeper's Vassal, Union Attack, the super rare, Secret Pass to the Treasures, and Trap Jammer. Now, Vassal is gotten as a level up reward for Ishizu, I believe. She's a little bit more difficult to unlock than the others, but if you do happen to have her, just get her up to like level 4 or level 7 or something like that, and you'll get Vassal. The reason he's needed for this deck is that his ability changes his battle damage into effect damage, which is really good because Union Attack makes it so that you can't inflict battle damage on a particular turn. You'll see why when we're actually in the duel itself, assuming that the deck decides to cooperate. Secret Pass is important because this allows Gravekeeper's Vassal to attack your opponent directly, so you don't have to worry about getting around all of his set monsters. And Trap Jammer is particularly important because there is one trap card in Marik's deck that he can use to stop your attacks, and ideally you draw Trap Jammer before the last turn of the game, so you have it set and ready to go so that if he does try to use that trap to stop you, you can stop him and still get the victory. Now, as for the strategy of the deck itself, it relies primarily on 2 specific cards. Hazy Flame Sphinx, which you can get from the card trader. She's only a rare, but I'm pretty sure she's a fairly expensive one, so be ready. And the continuous trap card Beast Rising. And the general idea in this deck is that with Sphinx's ability combined with Aroma Strategy, basically Sphinx sends the top card of your deck to let me back up a little bit. I'm getting myself confused. Sphinx's ability. You declare either monster, spell, or trap, and then you send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. If you guessed right, you can special summon a fire monster from your hand or graveyard. Now that works with Aroma Strategy because you can always see the top card of your deck, so you always guess right, so you can always special summon a fire monster. Beast Rising says that once per turn you can remove from play one of your face-up Beast or Beast Warrior type monsters to power up another Beast or Beast Warrior by the banished one's original attack power. And these two, Yaksha and Cerberus, are just some of the highest attack power fire, beast, or beast warriors in the game. So the general idea is you get Sphinx out as soon as you can. You use her ability to special summon Yakshas and Cerberuses, and then you use the Beast Rising trap card to consume them to power up the Sphinx. Give her a whole bunch of attack points, and then on the final turn of the duel, you summon Vassal, you use your 2 spell cards to give him all of Sphinx's attack power, and just go for the win. Vermin is here primarily because he's a good sort of attack sponge. He special summons another one of himself, and if you happen to have a Sphinx and a Bubonic Vermin in your starting hand, you just set the Vermin, Marik's going to attack it, you summon another one out of your deck, and then you contribute it for the Sphinx. Now, the primary difference between this deck and the recipe I found online is that it actually used another super rare and an ultra rare. I purposefully removed those because the super rare is an event card drop from Arcana, so it's not that easy to get at all. Hopefully you guys can get some, because it's a very good card. And then the ultra rare is just kind of a pain in the butt to get, and it does make the deck a little bit easier to use, but I've been able to win a couple of times with Marik so far without it, so I don't think it's all that necessary. So I'm just going to go charging in. Hopefully the deck will decide to cooperate, because there have been a few times where it keeps giving me the cards that I want to save until the end of the duel, like Vassal and Secret Pass and Union Attack and all the others, before the cards that I need to actually get the whole farming strategy going. So hopefully the deck will decide to cooperate this time. Sorta, yeah. Not too bad. I'll go ahead and set Vermin. It'll summon another Vermin out of the deck, make it a little bit easier to find cards. It'll reshuffle so that hopefully I don't draw a Cerberus next turn. And Beast Rising. That's actually good. That's one of the 2 cards you really need to get started with the deck. Oh, and Sphinx is next. Okay. So... okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to flip Vermin. I'm just going to... oh, I did not mean to do that. That's one of the downsides to Cerberus, is that you can normal summon him without tributing anything, but if you do, his attack is halved. I meant to sacrifice Bubonic Vermin so that I could get a 2,000 attack point monster in there and scare... actually, this works out just fine. The original plan was to have Cerberus scare off Marik's monsters, but I forgot that when Cerberus is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can search a Hazy out of your deck, so I'm just going to go ahead and take Sphinx. Marik's going to go after the Vermin with his other monster. I'm going to special summon the last one out of the deck. Marik can't exactly do anything about this one. So, here's what I was sort of talking about. You get Sphinx in play. You get Beast Rising ready. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to set this to on so that I can activate my trap card at the first... hold on. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit scrambled. I've been trying this deck a few times. I've been playing a lot of this game, just trying to get a lot of map fragments. Just my brain's in a few places at once. I'm going to use Sphinx's effect now. I'm going to declare a trap card because I can see that my next card is in fact Beast Rising. And then I'm going to special summon Cerberus to the field. Now, I'm not going to attack with any of them because there is a particular set of points you can get after the duel for beating your opponent with effect damage only, which is actually worth quite a bit. So I'm not going to go after either of his monsters. Now I'm going to make sure that my effect activation is set to on so that I can activate my trap card at the earliest possibility, and then I'm just going to end my turn. So now I activate Beast Rising. I'm going to use Beast Rising's effect to banish Cerberus and give his 2,000 attack points to Hazy Flame Sphinx. She is now pretty much more powerful than anything in Marik's deck, aside from surprise, surprise, his Egyptian God card. So now, at this point, what you'll want to do is you'll just want to continually use Sphinx's effect whenever the top card of your deck is not something you need to save until the end of the game. And then just keep special summoning your fire monsters, keep feeding them to Hazy Flame Sphinx through the use of Beast Rising. Just keep charging her with attack points. Because the idea is to get Sphinx's attack to over 10,000. And then, once you're ready to end the duel, you go the whole Vassal, Secret Pass, Union attack sort of route, dump those 10,000 points into Vassal, attack Marik, and then you get like 3,000 points for doing over 10,000 damage to your opponent in a single attack, as well as the points for beating your opponent with only effect damage. I'm actually going to set this back to on so that I can go ahead and use Beast Rising at the start of his turn again. So while I'm doing this, I'll go ahead and go over some of the cards that I know are in Marik's deck that you should probably watch out for. First and foremost would be his Egyptian God card, Ra. It's not that it can very easily outmuscle Hazy Flame Sphinx, it's that one of Ra's abilities is that Marik can pay 1,000 life points to destroy any monster on the field, just regardless of attack power. So if you ever let Ra out, Marik's just going to go ahead and give up 1,000 life points, destroy your Sphinx, and just ruin your whole day. Now, the caveat to that is that he does have to sacrifice 3 monsters in order to summon Ra. So once you've got Sphinx, or even if you have, say, Yaksha or somehow Cerberus on the field with all 2,000 attack points, you can start knocking out his monsters. Ideally, if you really want to go min-max for as many points as you possibly can get, I would recommend not attacking anything in attack mode, because then you would deal battle damage, which would remove your ability to get those effect damage points. But yeah, basically, you don't have to worry about Ra so long as you never let him have 3 monsters on his field at the start of his turn. The next threat that you need to worry about in his deck is Lava Golem. Now, Lava Golem is a very powerful monster, however, the main bit of annoyance to it is that it summons itself to your side of the field by tributing your monsters. And because it doesn't have the protection effect that Hazy Flame Sphinx does, where Marik can't target it with his spell and trap cards, what's more than likely going to happen is that Marik's going to summon Lava Golem to your side of the field, and then immediately hit it with something to make it so that you can't use it against him, and then both its effect and his spell's effect just burned out through your life points. Main method of dodging Lava Golem is to just never have 2 monsters on your field at the same time during his turn. And that's primarily why I kept changing my activation toggle to on, so that I could get rid of my second monster as soon as his turn started, so that if he does have Lava Golem in his hand, he can't use it against me. So I'm just going to keep doing this. Once you get Sphinx to over 10,000 attack points, you really don't have to keep using Beast Rising, because there's no benefit to pushing her attack power even higher, but I'm going to, just because it's fun. But yeah, so that's Ra, that's Lava Golem. The last thing you really kind of need to worry about with Marik's deck in terms of monsters is going to be, I'm trying to remember its name, Masked Beast Descardius, I believe is what it's called. It's a big 3,300 attack point monster, and it can special summon itself when he has any monster, and then either something called Melkid the Four-Faced Beast or Grand Tiki Elder on his field. And the main reason you want to watch out for for Descartes is simply because of its high attack power, especially if it's early on and you haven't been able to feed a lot of monsters into Sphinx. If he does suddenly summon Descartes, it's going to be very easy for him to take out Sphinx. And it looks like I can actually end the duel here, so I'm just going to wrap up my last thoughts. And if he ever does summon Masked Beast Descartes, do not attack it with Sphinx. Just don't attack it with anything, don't try to destroy it, just leave it alone. Because Descartes' effect says that when it goes to the graveyard, he gets to play a spell that lets him take control of one of your monsters. So if you ever do destroy it, with this big 13,000 possible attack power monster, all of a sudden it's under his control, and you've probably just lost your farming attempt. You still get points, you still get some rewards, but not nearly as many as you could have. So let's just go ahead and finish off the duel right now. I'm very happy that the deck decided to cooperate with me. Again, once Sphinx is past 10,000 attack points, you really don't need to keep dumping attack power into it. But I'm doing so because why the hell not? But then yeah, so the reason I emptied my deck out is that you get, again, more duel assessment points for having no cards left in your deck when you win. A little bit of a risky play because if you're not super careful and your opponent does somehow manage to stop your one-shot attack, you lose, because ideally you'll have milled your deck out faster than normal so that you can finish the farming session, and then he just simply ends his turn, you can't draw, and you lose. But in this situation, I know the only card in his deck that can stop me right now is Nightmare Wheel, but I have Trap Jammer set so that he didn't even have it. But if he did have it, he would have tried to activate it right then to save himself, and I would have just activated Trap Jammer to negate it and destroy it, and Vassal's effect would have gone through anyway. So that's sort of an in-action display of the deck. Now again, it's not foolproof, it's not perfect, because if you do get a really bad starting hand, odds are you're probably just going to sit there and flounder until he kills you. But that kind of applies to most any farming decks. I'm just glad that that one decided to cooperate, because when I tried it a few times beforehand, it really didn't like me. Oh cool, and they all spawned. But yeah, so that was the farming deck that I found from Marik. Again, pretty easy to put together. The one thing that's going to... Oops, sorry, I just whacked my desk. The one thing that's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt to get is this Union attack, because I don't know if I've said it yet, but the only way to get this is as a reward drop from beating regular Yugi. Now the good news is that he does show up at the gate. I don't know exactly what circumstances make him show up, but this is a super rare, so it is going to be fairly uncommon for him to drop them. Now, you can probably modify this deck a little bit more to get around it, and in fact I do have an idea for that. I may revisit it in just a few minutes, or maybe after I show off the Arcana deck, just to see if it'll work or not. But I would recommend getting Union Attack as soon as you can, because it is part of the foundation for a lot of farming decks for Legendary Duelists in this game. At least the very high-end ones that are going to pretty much guarantee you the ability to get 7,000 or 8,000 points if their effects go off. So, long story short, the sooner you get this thing, the better. Now the good news is that with the Arcana deck, you don't need Union Attack. This one uses a slightly older version of some farming options. This one works with the Paradox Brothers, specifically their Elements Unite skill. Now this is another skill that they get at level 4, so if you have unlocked them, just go ahead, chuck a couple of levels into them while you're looking for map fragments and you can get this. And basically Elements Unite works, you start with very, very few life points, and all you have is a Gate Guardian card in your hand, and you start with Sangha of the Thunder, Kazejin, and Suijin on the field. They can't attack or use their effects, so the general idea is that your first turn you tribute all of them to summon Gate Guardian, and then you use that to beat down your opponent. So it's a very high risk, high reward sort of situation, because if your opponent has any form of effect damage at all, the deck loses. And the good news is that Arcana's deck has no effect damage, so you don't have to worry about that. And the main way that this deck works is basically you just sit there and wall him with Gate Guardian, because its attack power is... I actually have him in here somewhere. Where is he? There he is. This is Gate Guardian. He has 3750 attack power. There's only one combination of 3 cards in all of Arcana's deck that he can use to get past this, and that's basically the idea of this deck, is to sit there with Gate Guardian in play, staring Arcana down, stalling him out, not letting him do anything until you draw all the cards out of your deck, and then you can win. And the good news about this deck is that the only super rares in here, the Thunder Dragons, these guys are completely optional. They are not related to the inner workings of the deck at all. The only reason they are here is to help mill the deck out faster. If you have any other good form of drawing, it's another super rare, but if you're lucky enough to have a Shard of Greed, if you have, again, really any form of draw power, you can easily swap the Thunder Dragons out for that. Now, the sort of final turn gimmick for this deck is the set of 3 cards that are Piranha Army, Secret Pass to the Treasures, again, and Gift of the Martyr. Now, this deck works in that it doesn't need Union Attack and it doesn't need Vassal, because Piranha Army's effect says that when it attacks your opponent directly, the battle damage it inflicts is doubled. Now, this is a bit easier to use than the whole Vassal Union Attack thing, because you only need to get Piranha Army up to 5,000 attack power, because then when they attack your opponent directly, that doubles up to over 10,000, and you still get all those points. But, of course, because they're doing battle damage instead of effect damage, you don't get any point, you don't get that effect damage only bonus that you would with Vassal and Union Attack. And in a lot of situations, you can usually swap the two sort of foundations out for one another. Sometimes it doesn't really work. Like with that Hazy Flame deck, the main thing is that Gift of the Martyr gives your... Let me explain Gift of the Martyr really quick. Basically, it works kind of like Union Attack, except instead of leaving the monsters in play and they just can't attack, Gift of the Martyr sends a monster on your field to the graveyard, and then the other one gains its attack power. Now, it doesn't say this in the text, but Gift of the Martyr only gives the original attack power. So, it's not quite a one-to-one situation, because, for example, with that Hazy Flame Sphinx deck, if I did buff Sphinx all the way up to 10,000 and then tried to use Gift of the Martyr to give its power to Piranha Army, they'd only get Sphinx's base attack of 1900. So, it's not exactly a sort of one-to-one exchange, but often you can build a more simple farming deck that relies on Piranha Army, Gift of the Martyr, and Secret Pass instead. Now, the rest of the deck is simply to just make it so that Arcana can't do anything and or draw a lot of cards. You have Good Goblin Housekeeping and Jar of Greed, which again are other cards that you can use to just draw cards out of your deck, try to find all the cards that you need to really shut down Arcana's Dark Magicians, because those are going to be the thorn in your side. Primarily in 2 ways. He has a spell card called Thousand Knives, which basically says that if he controls a Dark Magician, he can use that, target any monster on your field, and destroy it, i.e. like your Gate Guardian. And then the other thing he can do is he can play 2 of a spell card called Bound Wand, I believe it's called. And that buffs a spellcaster that it's equipped to by its level times 100. So if he does get both Bound Wands on a single Dark Magician, then it would be more strong enough to attack and destroy Gate Guardian. And the idea is to keep him from doing either option. So we have this spell card, Last Day of Witch. Pretty easy to get. You're probably going to get a bunch of them just as like loot rewards from NPC duelists and stuff. It just outright destroys all face-up spellcaster type monsters on the field, so ideally he has a Dark Magician in play, or he tries to flip summon it or something, and you manage to prevent him from using either of his spells. You can then just use Last Day of Witch to blow it up. Or, a little bit more useful, is Ready for Intercepting. This is a trap card. You target a warrior or spellcaster type monster in the field, change it to face down defense position. So if he ever does summon Dark Magician, you just activate this, set it face down, the bound wands are destroyed. I think it stops... Actually, it doesn't stop Thousand Knives if he's activated it, but I don't think he can flip the Dark Magician face up if it's the same turn that he first summoned it. So the idea there is that you use this card, you force the Dark Magician face down, he can't do anything about it, and the next turn you use Gate Guardian to blow it up so that he can't just flip it back up and then use Thousand Knives. Now, there were some other cards in this deck, likewise. I can't quite remember what they were, like with the Hazy deck, but what I've done is I've replaced them with Blustering Winds, which says, target a face-up monster you control, it gains 1,000 attack points. The idea being you add these 1,000 attack points to Piranha Army to help push it over the 5,000 limit so you can still deal over 10,000 damage at least. And then Straight Flush, which you can activate only when all your opponent's spell and trap card zones are full, and you destroy everything. This isn't fully necessary, but one thing that the AI will do is that if its hand is full, it will try to avoid outright discarding a card if it can instead set it. So this can help you get rid of Bound Wands and the Thousand Knives and stuff if the AI happens to try to save them by setting them face down. Not a particularly useful trap, I would say, for dueling against Arcana, but it can probably come in handy, and I think I might actually need to beat him before I can duel him at the gate. Please don't tell me that's true. No, I don't. Cool. Alright, so, enough yammering about the... yeah, I still want to duel him at the gate, because it's a level 40 at the gate instead of a level 20 in-game. But yeah, enough yammering about how the deck works. Let's just go ahead and show off how it works, so you can get a better idea than just me trying to explain things in this sort of rambly, roundabout, confusing sort of way. And while the game's loading, one thing I want to bring up is that these decks are specifically designed for the level 40s. They may or may not work as well against the lower difficulty levels. So, I know in particular I tried to use one deck against the level 30 Marik, thinking it would work just fine, and I got pretty quickly thrashed, even when it started to work. So, if you're going to be using either of these decks, it's level 40s pretty much only. So just giving you guys the heads up. I'm going to go ahead and summon Gate Guardian here, and because it's the ace card of the Paradox Brothers, you get to see this cool Transformers-esque animation of the three of them combining. And we get to change out the creepy music for the awesome rock and roll. And here's where the duel gets interesting, because you pretty much have no cards to use at all. You're kind of at the mercy of what he wants to do. And while it is worth attacking his things to try and keep him from playing enough monsters to then tribute for the Dark Magician, he does have cards that he can use to mill out his own decks, so it then becomes a little bit of a race as well, which is why I do recommend having a lot of draw power in this deck if you can afford it. And that is why Thunder Dragon is kind of nice, because you draw it and then you can immediately send it to the graveyard to pull the other two out. Yeah, that's good. Oh, cool. So he's just got a Dark Magician in his hand. Now when it comes to Arcana's deck, I've pretty much mentioned all of the big threats. You know, the Dark Magician with Thousand Knives, the Dark Magician with Bound Wands, and I really need to stop attacking things because all that's doing is letting him draw more cards. Trying to remember if I've seen anything else that could be dangerous. He does have the spell card Dark Magic Attack, which, if he's controlling a Dark Magician, Dark Magic Attack will destroy all spell and trap cards on your side of the field. So it's not too terribly bad, but if you do have some ready for intercepting set to, well, actually if you have some ready for intercepting set to counter Dark Magician, you're going to use those before he can even use Dark Magic attacks, so that's really not that big of a deal. Oh, speak of the devil, there it is. That would be one thing I'd recommend about this deck, is only keep attacking until you find a ready for intercepting, and then just leave him alone, because as you saw, he's got a lot of cards in his deck that you can use to sort of sort through and look for Dark Magicians, or just make his deck smaller so it's more likely for him to draw them. So, unfortunately, I had a little spot of bad luck and I didn't get ready for that counter trap for a while. But here's where we can use it. So we target him, second face down. He can't do anything about it, and then on this turn, Gate Guardian can just go ahead and obliterate it. Now, the other thing that is important about these farming decks, and in fact many farming decks in general, is that you don't have to wait for your deck to run out before you go for the victory. And there's the next great Dark Magician. I keep hitting the table, I'm sorry. If I do have all the cards I need to take a victory, I could just go ahead and do it right then and there. A lot of the time it is just sort of trying to get as many points as I possibly can. But in this situation where his deck is 4 cards smaller than mine, and I'm not even sure if I can really catch up to that. If I find Piranha Army and Gift of the Martyr, I may just go ahead and take the win there, even though I'll have cards left to use. Let's go ahead and toss this back. Can I use... no, okay. I just couldn't remember if I'd already taken the other Thunder Dragon out. And... okay, so I have a straight flesh set. There's no reason to set the other one. I've got a Jar of Greed ready. Okay. I'm kind of catching up. Let's see. He'll draw a card and be down to 1. If my next card is Good Goblin Housekeeping, I think I can empty my deck. If it's not, I think I may just have to go for the victory on my next turn. Oh crap. And I think I lose because there's the Thousand Knives. Okay. And that is the other aspect of farming, is I could have gone for the victory right there, but I just kinda... I took the risk and came back around to bite me, so... But you could kind of see the whole point of this particular deck. I mean, I could have just as easily summoned Piranha Army, normal summon, used Secret Pass, used Gift of the Martyr, used the Blistering Winds, all that. So, you at least got to see, even though I didn't execute it properly, you at least got to see how the deck should have worked. Assuming he didn't get lucky enough to be able to summon his Dark Magician. Actually, that was a tactical error on my part. I should have remembered that he had the third one in his hand, so I probably should have gone for the face down. But anyway, that was my mistake. That was the other deck. Those are the 2 farming decks that I found. Again, I primarily chose them just because they'd be fairly cheap to put together. A lot of them are rares and normals. Granted, they are from different boxes, so you will have to spread your gems out a bit if you want to try and remake these. But again, I picked them because they seemed fairly simple to put together. They didn't really require you to level up a duelist that far, and they tended to use early game duelists as well. Like, I know that the Paradox Brothers, they're no longer event exclusive, and I think you only have to get to stage 12 to get their unlocked missions to show up, which really isn't that far at all. Might be cutting it close before the Yami Marik event ends, but maybe you can do it. And you know what? Most important thing that I want to say is that if you can't make either of these farming decks, there are other options out there. Feel free to just throw into a Google search, just, you know, look up like Yami Marik level 40 farming deck. And, you know, check out Reddit, check out some of the other fan sites. There's plenty of other options out there. There's plenty of other farming recipes out there. And if you really are kind of strapped for cards, just make the deck the best deck that you can and just go from there. You know, that may not be able to get you 8,000 points every single duel, but if you can make, you know, 3,000-ish, especially with the bonus duel reward event going on, you can probably make it pretty far in the event. 3 million, if you're lucky. Not to discourage you, but that is kind of a high score. I mean, I'm only at 1 million, and I've been basically using farming decks nonstop. Yeah, I'm at 1.4 million, and I've been using these farming decks nonstop, so might be a little bit more difficult to get after the 3 million reward if you don't have any of these specialized decks, but it's certainly possible to get a huge majority of things without using these hyper specialized decks. So this is just something I wanted to show off. I will be showing off more farming options for other duelists in the future, definitely whenever an event comes around, as well as certain other legendary duelists, particularly the ones that have the important cards like Union Attack, so look forward for that in the future. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all had a great time, and I hope you all have a great day. I will see you all in the next episode, which may or may not be more of this event. I honestly have no idea. And I'm blanking on the outro because it's like 2 in the morning and I'm exhausted, so yeah. Thanks a bunch for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.